Aloha Layatu and welcome to a bulletin for BCN News. Leading our news tonight, the number of active COVID-19 cases in MIQ remains at 2, according to the government COVID-19 website. There were no new cases detected from the day 1 testing on Tuesday of the passengers who arrived on Monday this week. However, there have been some concerns for passengers from the March 22nd flight being detained in MIQ despite not showing any symptoms and receiving negative COVID test results. Some of these passengers are expected to stay in MIQ for 27 days. Here's Esther Bavihi with more.
A total of 30 passengers arrived on Monday's flight. Most of the passengers are at home quarantine facilities, 6 home quarantine facilities located in Alofi and 1 at Namukulu. The other 14 passengers are being quarantined at government-approved MIQ facilities. The passengers who have consistently returned negative tests since they arrived on the island on March 22nd were released from MIQ at Home Office on Monday. The last few passengers in MIQ at Namukulu cottages from the same flight were also released on Monday. Meanwhile, the passengers who tested positive from that flight remain at MIQ. Dr. Colin Tukuitonga says that it makes no sense to keep people in MIQ for the length of time required by the new government. Dr. Tukuitonga was responding to questions from BCN News about the people still in MIQ, even though they have all tested negative since Wednesday last week. BCN News obtained a copy of a letter from the Health Department to some of the passengers, informing them that the 2 who tested positive on day 7 tests on March 28th will be released next week on April 11th, while their 2 immediate contacts will stay in MIQ until the 17th of April, even though these contacts have never tested positive since arriving in Niue on March 22nd. This means that these people who are not infectious, not posing any threat to the public, will have been in detention for 27 days. Director General Gayleen Tasmania explained that the clock for the close contacts start after the isolation period of the positive cases. She told BCN News that these are the standard MIQ protocols and were reaffirmed by the PACMAT team from New Zealand last month. The Director General, however, has not responded to questions about the consideration of the viral load, which will indicate the infectivity of the case, or the fact that all the 7 cases identified in MIQ in Niue since early March did not have any COVID symptoms. The key question right now is, why are people who are not infectious being held in quarantine for no good reason other than to follow protocols? If these people are not symptomatic, have tested negative, then essentially they are being detained and not quarantined.
The government announced last week that the cost of fuel on the island will increase beginning on Monday, 4th of April this week. The island had already experienced a hike in fuel costs earlier this year, so it was no surprise that motorists would be more concerned of this added increase.
According to the government press release last Thursday, petrol will increase by 48 cents to $3.50 per litre, and diesel will increase by 68 cents to $3.70 per litre. In the press release, the government said that the fuel price hike is due to global supplies affected by geopolitical tensions. Premier Dalton Tangalangi says, regrettably, fuel price increases have become necessary due to the ongoing mismatch between global oil supply and significant demand, coupled with the market uncertainty over increasing geopolitical tensions in Eastern Europe have driven up oil prices. Premier Tangalangi said that international disruption to the supply of oil has a direct effect on the price of fuel at the pumps in Niue. Global demand and reduced supply of oil pushes up prices at the pumps as governments and fuel retailers can't absorb the cost increases. The last adjustment of the fuel prices was in January this year, and while the news may not be pleasing for motorists and many on the island, it was not a surprise given Premier Tangalangi has forwarded fuel increases at a sitting of the Whanokepule last month.
Members of the Whanue Kepule were invited to a consultation organised by the Office of the Premier and the Office of the Speaker held at the Scenic Matavai yesterday. Enhancing Our Home was the theme of the consultation meeting yesterday. Here's more on that story.
According to a government press release, the focus areas discussed at the consultation include the aspirations, initiatives and challenges of the government, the procedures and processes of the Niue Assembly, the role of the Public Service Commission and the legislative and executive arms of government. Premier Honourable Dalton Tangilangi announced the government's new strategy towards Niue Koe Kaina. This new strategy is for all of Niue, government, businesses, individuals and communities, because according to the Premier, when our people achieve their goals, we achieve ours. According to the press release, the consultation gave the Whanue Kepule the opportunity to express their views and ask questions outside of the standard 6 weekly intervals of the Whanue Kepule sittings. However, one veteran politician and former Minister Olaf Jacobson told BCN News that she struggled to see the clarity of the intentions of these new consultations being ushered in. She said that as members of the Assembly, they are mindful that they already have a model of practice or their terms of reference as prescribed in the supreme law of the country, the Constitution, and that as members of the Assembly they must be reminded not to go outside these legal parameters in the execution of their duties as the representatives of the people. The consultation also provided the opportunity for the Whanue Kepule to learn about the new organisational structure, where the legislative arm of government is separate now from the executive. There are also now 2 new positions created for the legislature. One is the advisor to the Speaker of the House, Christine Ioane, and the other is the Hansard officer, Tina Tavita. Olaf Jacobson said that the proceedings of yesterday's consultations should have been recorded and broadcasted so that the people can hear. But the media was not informed of the meeting and only found out yesterday morning by a government official in passing. There was no direct information or notification from the Whalefono to the media about this consultation.
The Department of Education and Schools completed their COVID-19 response plan in 2021 last year. The plan detailed preparations and requirements for schools in alignment with the COVID-19 National Alert Code levels. While some parents and students are well aware of this plan, some are still unsure.
BCN reached out to Director of Education Bufa Tongahai via email last week regarding the school's plans and preparations in the event of COVID-19 National Alert Code Red. Mrs. Tongahai responded saying that the school was prepared lessons and study packs in a possible event of a nationwide lockdown, which can be distributed to the students with the help of the village councils. Mrs. Tongahai also added that the Education Department is planning on having a designated spot with BCN to deliver lessons through Radio Sunshine. BCN News reached out to a few parents to ask if they are aware about the Department of Education COVID-19 response plan for the schools. A parent of 6 children with 4 children in high school and 2 in primary school told BCN News, "My kids, particularly the older ones attending Niue High School, seem to be well aware of the plans in regards to their schoolwork. They talked about how the teachers have told them that the school is working on a COVID plan should the country go into lockdown. On the other hand, the more specific one in regards to their classes. Some subject teachers have told them that their online classes and tutorial will be through Messenger. So right now, we are in the process of trying to set them up with Messenger accounts in preparation for this." Director of Education Bufa Tongahai says that the department would need to go over the 2021 plan once again to amend accordingly to suit the changing environment, as department plans must align to the main National Emergency Response Plan.
Niue High School is a recipient of the Grassroots Human Security Project grant from the government of Japan to build a multi-purpose classroom and installation of solar power generation equipment at the school. Here's more on that story.
The project is worth more than $287,000. The multi-purpose classroom will be used for supplementary lessons, special support classes for students with special needs, and for vocational education and training. The solar power generation equipment is expected to contribute to 20% of the school's annual energy consumption, which in turn will contribute towards the government's target of achieving 80% renewable energy generation by 2025. BCN News spoke with Mr. Minoru Kirihara, the first secretary of the Embassy of Japan in Wellington, who said that the Japanese government is very happy to help support Niue High School and the people of Niue. Mr. Kirihara told BCN News that this project with Niue High School is the fifth project funded through the Japanese government's grassroots human security grants projects since Niue and Japan first established diplomatic relations in 2015. Mr. Kirihara says that Niue High School and the Health Department is very important to him personally because of the efforts of the late Mrs. Fingo Kulasea Ioane, who worked with him to formulate some of these projects for the Health Department and for Niue High School. He extended his condolences to the principal of Niue High School, Charles Ioane, on the loss of his wife, Fingo, last year. The grant contract for Niue High School multi-purpose classroom and the solar system project was officially signed last month by the Japanese ambassador to New Zealand, Ito Koichi, and the Director General of Education and Social Services, Mrs. Gaylene Tasmania.
A youth art and poetry workshop, which started 3 weeks ago, wrapped up last weekend. Organized and facilitated by Fiafia Rex of Omatafua and with artist John Pule, the workshop was based on the hiapo of Niue. Here's Sana Sioneholo with more.
John Pule says the workshop was done in the essence of Niue's hiapo and Niue's artists of the past.
The workshop first started off 3 weeks ago with a workshop conducted by Api Mutufu'u, and he took us through the process of cutting down a branch of the ovava tree and splitting the bark away from it, and we were able to beat it into a beautiful long piece of hiapo. And out of that workshop, we were able to kind of do this workshop that you see here behind me, where I had about 18 people come and join, ranging from the age of 8 to 73 years old. But the focus of the workshop was on the youth, and the foundation of the workshop was the Niue hiapo. And the Niue hiapo, our people made it in the 19th century, and it was mass produced until something happened around the turn of the century and they decided not to make it anymore. So what I wanted to do was try and revive that part of our history that is not known, how remarkable these hiapo were, because, you did have to kind of work hard to try and make it. But not only did they make it, but they also painted on it. So these artists from the 19th century, they are what you can say are our first painters, our first artists, because they started painting imagery that was starting to impact on their lives, like boats started and ships started appearing on their hiapo.
BCN News was able to speak with one of the art students, Diola Kampala, who was working on her third piece on Friday last week.
This is my first time doing this kind of piece, like this big. This is the first time. And it's also a thank you to Fiafia and Champule. It's thank you to them that it's also given us seniors and teenagers a good opportunity of what's it really like to having to do this type of art, because knowing that it's quite different from what you do. So basically, acrylic painting is once you start painting, it just dries quickly then, whereas oil painting, it takes time and it takes a lot of patience to really have to wait and to finish the piece.
18-year-old Diola Kampala has been studying art at Niue High School and just last year completed her level 3 NCEA art course. She told us about one of her pieces inspired by the women in her family.
So my piece here is about women, well, as us women. We are sort of like the tree of life. As you can see here, her dress is sort of like a bark that represents like a tree. The patterns above has basically I've been doing ever since I started level 1, so that's in year 11. So my teacher, he taught us about patterns at first of how important they are. He showed us pictures of them, and he said like, how do we use these patterns to make our own art? So from there, the basic arts like say hiapo, he brought out these old pieces that have never been used or like have seen but not quite used because it's quite rare. And from there, we just started using them. So throughout my year of level 1, 2, and 3, basically patterns were all involved, as you can see here. And at the bottom, if you can see the full picture, it's basically all about nature. So like you have fishes, you have flowers, you have basically nature. Everything that us women have been doing here and how important it is to us as women.
Fiafia Rex told BCN News that the workshop was supported by the Pacific Forum's Pacific Resilience Partnership Program to fund the materials needed.
2 important sport events took place last Saturday. The singles finals for lawn bowls at Fonuakula and the juniors netball tournament at Niue Primary School. Taking the win for the men's final was Stan Kalauni with 21 points over 18 to 14-year-old Tukala Tangilangi. And for the women's was Christine Ioane scoring 21 over 15 to Joy Peru. For the juniors netball, taking first place was Fasio from Vayam. Here's more on that story. A total of 10 teams participated at the juniors netball tournament, separated into 2 pools, Pool A and Pool B. Playing the third and fourth final playoffs were Tongulu from Tamakotonga and Tuasea Stars from Hakupu. Teams playing the finals for first and second place were Tuapa Juniors and Fasio from Vayam. Topping the overall tournament was Fasio. Second place went to Tuapa Juniors. Third place went to Tongulu, and coming in fourth was Tuasea Stars. Niue Island Netball Association President Carol Edwards told BCN News that was a great tournament, good weather and great support from general public. The PMCU Niue Waste Management Project team organized a recycling competition and Recycling Kids fashion show earlier last month. The winners were announced at the Recycling Kids fashion show that was held last Saturday at Scenic Matavai Resort. Here's more on that story. The purpose of the recycling competition was to find creative, fun, and functional ways to reuse, repair, and repurpose materials on the island. There were 5 judging categories with a total prize money of $4,250. For the intermediate category of Year 7 and 8, first prize of $200 went to Hey Mana Hey Go. For the juniors category of Year 9 and 10, first place of $300 went to Lassie Marie Ioane. For the seniors category Years 11 to 13, first prize went to Nive and Nava Heko of $400. For the open men's and women's category aged 19 to 49, first place went to Natasha Tohovaka with $500. And the masters category aged 50 years and over, first place of $500 went to Mata Okesene. For the Recycling Kids fashion show last Saturday evening, all entries were required to design wearable outfits made out of recyclable materials, such as plastics, cans, and cardboard boxes, where the kids could wear and showcase at the show. There were 4 judging categories with a total prize money of $1,400. And for each category, first prize was $200, second prize was $100, and the third prize was $50. For the under 5 category, first place went to Tiva Samoa Tongakilo. For the Year 1 and 2 category, first prize went to Grayson Bingia. Topping the Year 3 and 4 category was Makaias Kolasea. Taking first place for the Year 5 and 6 category was Tangitose Tohovaka. And that is our news bulletin for tonight. Join us again next week, Tuesday and Thursday, for more of our weekly bulletin. Until then, wishing you all a very safe weekend and keep smiling. Nono fua mo kia munuina.